That's good.
Hi, everyone. I'm Susan Koenig, and this is,
I'm Nikki.
and I am so glad to be with you and to do my presentation with you, for you, by Zoom, because I could not be there in person. And Nikki's role is going to be,
I'm going to facilitate as we go into the practice portion of this presentation, and I will help to keep Susan on track so she knows what part she's at to make sure we don't miss anything.
and she'll be able to, she's going to be there in person, so she's going to be able to guide you during practice as issues and questions come up.
Perfect.
Right, thank you. Nikki, you're excused.
Thank you, Susan.
Nikki's going to prompt me in case I veer from the handout. So today's theme is the lungs. That's the overall subject of today's presentation. I've been interested in organs for a long time. Organs are a very important part of the soma, and I've always wondered, well, why doesn't anybody talk about organs? And so I did some focusing. I picked up information about organs from Bonnie Bainbridge Cohen, from Tom Meyers, from Gil Hedley, from some other people. And I just decided to put this together, and now you're going to experience it. The underlying theme has to do with any organs. So the underlying theme is to enhance organ awareness and proprioception through breathing and somatic movement to increase ease of movement, range, and comfort. So you can apply this to any organ you would like. And we're going to focus on the lungs today. You'll have a handout. I'm going to follow the handout so that every part of it becomes clear to you. Lung health not only supports ease of breathing and respiratory function, it also supports ease of movement in our shoulders, our head and neck, our back, our spine, especially the thoracic spine, and generally throughout the soma. And you will experience that today, I hope. So just a very, very brief overview of the lungs. Here's lung man. Here's actually organ man. And maybe I can come a little closer. And so here's the front lobes. Yes, good. That's better. Thank you, Nikki. More light. So here are the front of the organs. Here's the right lobe and the right lung, and it's divided into 3 lobes: an upper lobe, a middle lobe, and a little bit of lower lobe here, but most of the lower lobe is in the back of the rib cage, and it's more posterior. So sometimes in my mind, I think of it as a posterior lobe. The left lung has 2 lobes. It has the upper anterior lobe and then the rest of the lobe. But this large lobe is actually divided into 2 regions. So in essence, we're going to think about 3 lobes or 3 regions on each side: an upper region, a middle region, a lower region, and the lower lobe is mostly all the posterior of the rib cage. Let me hold the skeleton. So the lower lobe is all the rib basket from the bottom of the ribs. You can't see, from the bottom of the ribs, literally all the way up to the spine of the scapula. So the posterior, or quote lower lobe, or posterior lobes, it's huge in the lungs, very important, as you can see, to the spine, and especially the thoracic spine. So that's a schematic that we're using today rather than exact detail of the lungs. So for the sake of this presentation, as I said, we're thinking of an upper lobe, which actually reaches above our clavicles. And remember, all of this is 3-dimensional. We have a middle lobe, which is approximately over the breasts and goes around somewhat into the back, and then the lower posterior lobe covers some of the middle lobe as it goes around into the back. And then we have a lower lobe, which is a small strip in the front, but mostly most of the back of our rib cage, except for a portion from the spine of the scapula up. But all of this to the spine of the scapula is the lower posterior lobe.
So Susan, the lower lobe at the back covers the middle lobe a little bit, is that what you
Yes,
said?
the lobe, the posterior or lower lobe in the back covers some of the middle lobe as it wraps around the rib cage.
Thank you.
Okay. Many respiratory issues happen due to lung areas becoming glued and dense. Then your lungs can't expand well as you breathe air in and release your stale air out as you breathe out. The lungs lose motility, which is their natural ability to move. Motility refers to natural organ movement. So lungs lose motility, and then the natural ability of the lung lobes and lung regions to slide against each other. The actual regions of the lobe actually need to be able to slide against each other. And also the interior tissue needs to be have freedom so that the interior tissue is also free to move and not be inhibited. And so if you have lack of sliding, if you have densification, if you have gluing in the lungs, in the lung tissue, all of that leads to lung congestion. Many people have a history of bronchitis, asthma, pneumonia, smoking, injuries like car accidents, blows, boxing, wrestling, all kinds of sports can give you injuries, surgeries, or other respiratory issues that have caused scarring and congestion. In the following activities, we'll use breath and movement to open up our breathing for ease, comfort, and health, facilitate spaciousness and sliding between our lobes and lobe regions, break up adhesions and densifications between and within the lung tissue and lobes. And in general, we are going to give, today's activities will give our lungs a wonderful movement massage. So we're going to start with assessment. And we are going to be repeating this assessment many, many times to see what has the most effect for you. So the assessment is consisting of, there's two assessments. The first one is, we're going to start by just gently raising our right arm and feeling what that's like, and gently raising our left arm. I can feel that my left arm isn't quite as mobile. It's a little more limited in its movement than my right. That's me. You'll do it for you. So raising our arms. Sometimes I like to raise both arms and even move around a little bit. That's the first assessment. And then side bending, ear to shoulder. And I feel stiffness going to both sides. Maybe it's a speck easier on me right now to go to the right. And that may change as we do activities. Hopefully it'll change for the better from both sides. So we're going to start by using our breath and movement to expand the upper right and left lobes. And we're going to start with the right upper lobe. And I've on the handout, each part is mimicked. We have 5 different things we're going to cover for the upper lobes, the middle lobes, and the lower posterior lobe with each side. So starting with the right upper lobe, first you want to focus on the right upper lobe. Remember, I'm going to come a little closer. It comes above the clavicles, and it comes, I would say, from about here above the breast up, and up higher than the clavicles and back and about to the spine of the scapula. So that is the upper, it's got kind of an apex to it. So you want to, we're going to go right first. So I'm taking my left hand and I'm going to kind of tap my clavicle a little under it, because I want to just bring my awareness and sensation into my upper right lobe, a little bit to the back. And then I'm just going to focus. I'm just going to stand. I'm going to close my eyes so I can go internally more easily. And I'm going to find my internal focus with my right lobe. And I'm just going to take some breaths into my right lobe to gently expand and contract it. Inhales and exhales. Let's do that now together. Focusing your breath into your upper right lobe, 3-dimensionally. visualizing it, sensing it. Can you feel expand, contract? And then open your eyes and let's reassess and see if it made a difference. And I'm gonna raise my right, oh, I can feel it. It actually made, I don't know if you can see it, but I just have a lot more ease on my right side. And I'm always gonna compare with my left. Left is a little stiffer. And you know, you can do it a few times. Sometimes I like to raise both arms. Maybe you can, I don't know if you can see, but I can raise my right arm a little higher right now than my left arm. And sometimes I move around a little bit. So that's always the first assessment. The second assessment, side bending. And actually my side bending is a little bit easier to both sides, even my left side, which is great for me because I'm often a little more stiff on my left side. Okay, so now we're going to go into number 4, which is the movement part. And there's 2 movement parts that we're going to do. There is a compression part and an expansion part. It's all in your handout. So we're focusing on the upper right lobe. Your arm is down. And you're going to just gently compress your right shoulder girdle down, feeling that you've kind of put a compression, a gentle compression into your right upper lobe. I'm even side bending a little bit to the lobe, just a little bit. And I just want to feel that compression. I want to breathe with that compressed position. And I can almost feel like my breath is trying to get into that upper right lobe. And then I'm just going to relax a little bit. And now for the expansion, I am going to, and you might need to look at this first and then we'll repeat and do it together. To expand the right lobe, I'm going to gently raise up my right shoulder, bend my knees so that I can very gently pull the lower 2 lobes away as I bring my right upper lobe up so that I'm creating more space between the upper lobe and the lower 2 lobes from my position. And I'm going to breathe in that position, inhales and exhales, expanding 3-dimensionally into that upper right lobe and come back. And if you haven't joined me on this round. So reorganizing where you are in your upper right lobe. Do a gentle compression, compress your right shoulder girdle down a little bit into your upper right lobe, breathe a little, let it feel confined, that breath feels confined. I can feel the stiffness in that upper right lobe. And now, on an inhale, I'm gonna raise up my right shoulder, I'm gonna bend my knees, and I'm gonna visualize and sense my upper right lobe is coming away from my lower to my middle and lower lobe. And my bending my knees helps a downward movement of the lower 2 lobes as my shoulder going up, shrugging up, helps me to expand that upper right lobe. I'm going to breathe into that upper right lobe. And then I'm just going to I'm going to stand in neutral and sense for just a few seconds. I already can feel, I'm just so much more aware. My proprioception has grown in my upper right lobe. And I'm going to, I can feel just more all around movement in the raising of my arm. And sticky in my left. You can always repeat the assessment. And I'm going to side bend to the right and left. And it feels better than the first one. I'm not sure how much I've gained, but it's feeling a little more easeful. And that is what we're going to be doing with the right lobe. And we're going to now repeat that with the left upper lobe. So left upper lobe, first we want to explore it. I'm going to take my right hand and kind of tap on the top of my shoulder, going to tap my clavicle, little under my clavicle because the right lobe starts maybe above the breast, maybe around here. And I'm thinking of my right lobe being 3-dimensional, front, the upper part, the back part, maybe under my arm, in my armpit a little bit, or in that direction. palpating it, getting a sense of where my upper right lobe is, left lobe, sorry, my upper left lobe. And now I'm just gonna stand, I'm gonna close my eyes so I can go inside more easily. I'm going to breathe into the upper left lobe. I'm gonna feel the expansion and the release. I'm directing, you can even leave your hand on your right hand on your left shoulder if that helps you. I'm just breathing and feeling the expansion with my breath and then releasing the breath. And now I'm going to open my eyes and I'm going to reassess. I can just feel it already. It may not be exactly matching my right, but it's so much easier for me to now bring my left arm out, up, my
It's
right
crazy
arm
how
up,
much easier.
my left. And Nikki, what are you saying?
Same, like just after just the breathing already, my left arm, because I've been lifting in front and to the side, and it's already so much
better. She's
smoother.
been lifting to the front, to the side and around, and it's easier. And then the side bending. And I'm really improving on my left side way more than I'm improving on my right side, which is a bit of a surprise for me. Whatever is true is true. Okay, so that's how we're going to deal with the upper two lobes, right and left. And now we're not going to go to the middle next. We're going to go to the lower lobe, which is a small strip at the bottom of the rib cage in the front, but in the back. Remember, it's most of our rib cage from the bottom of our rib basket all the way up to the spine of the scapula. So all of this is posterior or lower lobe, and very much you can see how it relates to especially the thoracic spine. So it's a really large area. So it's going to start on the right lower posterior lobe. Get a sense of it. I'm going to close my eyes and I'm going to breathe into it. Now, to breathe into my lower posterior lobe on the right, as I inhale, I'm actually going to curl forward a little bit, and continue to breathe so I can really fill and expand the back, the posterior part of my lung, especially that, what's called the lower or posterior lobe. Feels good to do that. I feel like I don't get a lot of air sometimes into the posterior part of my lung. That's right now my right lung. Okay, I'm going to come back and stand. And it's so much more in my awareness now, in my proprioception. And so I'm going to do the testing. And as I raise my arm, what I feel is I'm raising my arm much more three-dimensionally now, instead of just sort of in a linear line. And my left is a little bit more linear, but raising up my right arm, there's a fullness through my torso now that wasn't there before. And I'm going to side bend. Oh, now it's making more of a difference with my right, and my left is continuing to improve. Good. And we are now going to go and work with the left lower posterior lobe. So on the left side, there's a small strip of the lower lobe, the posterior lobe on the bottom in the front. But again, the majority of the lobe is in the back. And it fills from the bottom of your rib basket all the way to the spine of your scapula, all the way. It really affects your thoracic spine. So I like to wiggle around and kind of get a sense of where it is. I'm going to keep that visualization and sensation in my mind. And I'm going to close my eyes so I can go internally better. And remember, it's not about making a big breath as much as focusing your awareness and your intention on this part of on this posterior lobe, focusing the awareness and your breath. That's what makes this huge difference. So I'm going to breathe into my lower and posterior left lobe. Inhales and exhales. I'm going to inhale and curve my spine a little forward, curl it a little forward so I can really get that breath expanding into my posterior left lung lobe. It feels really good. I can tell I really need this. I don't want to stop,
And
but I will.
When we're doing this part, Susan, we've moved into the compression, well, the compression and expansion.
Not yet. We're breathing. We're doing
Oh,
the
we're still just
breathing.
doing the
We're in the breathing. Okay, now I think that's number 3. No, 2.
Number 2.
It's number 2.
So we didn't do compression and expansion on the right side yet. We only did the breathing.
Oh, we
And
only, okay,
reassessed.
I messed up. Okay. I only did the breathing on the right side, so we're gonna do the movement, the compression and expansion with the left posterior lobe, and we'll go back to the right. Thank you. That's what I need Nikki here for. So we've covered on the handout, we've done the palpation and focus on the lower posterior lobe on the left. We've closed our eyes and we've breathed into it. But now we're gonna do the movement, and we'll go back and pick up the movement on the other side. So there's a compression and an expansion. So for the compression, bend your knees a little bit, and I'm just gonna slightly raise my left arm. I'm kind of more in scarecrow position. And I'm going to just bring my shoulder girdle down. I'm going to even inhale and arch a little bit so that I can compress into that most of the back posterior lobe. And I'm going to breathe and feel that compression as I breathe. And then I'm going to let that go. I'm going to bring my arm back a little bit bent up. I'm going to bend my knees again. And now, as I inhale, I'm going to inhale, raise my arm, straighten my knees, bend a little forward, and breathe. And as I started with my knees bent, so when I straighten my knees, it gently pulls that lower lobe more downward. And as I raise my arm, I'm visualizing the upper part of the lung sliding away from the lower part of the lung, especially in the back, so that I'm expanding through, and this is the expansion part, so I'm expanding through that lower left lobe. I'm breathing a little bit more, inhales and exhales, expanding with the inhale and then releasing with the exhale. And then I'm going to come down. I can really feel the volume of that lower posterior lobe, and I'm going to raise my arm. Oh yeah, and I even feel it through all the way through my feet. I really feel my whole soma is getting much more involved. And then I'll go to the right. I'm just so much more aware of my left right now. Okay, and because I skipped, you go through the handout in order. I messed up, so we're gonna go back and we're gonna get the right lower lobe. Okay. So we're gonna just refresh our memories. You're at the right lower posterior lobe. When you breathe into it, you can even curl a little forward just to refresh your memory. And now we're going to go into the movement. The movement has a contraction portion and an expansion portion. So I'm going to slightly just bend my arm a little bit, bend my knee. Now I've made up these movements. I hope you make up movements. Please come up with better movements. Email them to me so that I can learn them too. And I'm going to inhale and arch a little bit and compress that lower lobe, mostly posterior. I'm going to breathe and feel the effect of that compression on my breath. This is what many people don't even realize they're getting because they're so compressed. And then as you inhale, lengthen your arms, straighten your legs, let your legs pull your lower right lobe down, let your raised arm, you're not pulling or stretching, you're just raising it up with your natural elasticity. Let your upper lobe pull away up from the lower lobe, which is coming down, and you're bringing your lower lobe on the right away from your two upper lobes, your middle and your upper and your middle lobe. And let that release. Let's just do that one more time. The compression, bend your knees, press down, maybe arch a little, compress that lower lobe. On an inhale, straighten your legs, reach your arm, bend a little forward, expand that right lower posterior lobe of the lungs. Breathe. three-dimensionally. And come back. I feel my lungs are huge right now. I have just these big lungs. And arm up, right arm up. And again, I feel it's much more three-dimensional. And everything is growing. I can't wait to add now the middle lobe and see what that adds. And then side bending to the right and to the left. Good. Okay. Now we're going to go to C, page 3, and it goes over into page 4, breath and movement to expand middle, right, and left lobes. And we'll start with the middle right lobe. Nikki will keep me on track. So first we're going to focus and palpate the right middle lobe. Now, sometimes I use my left arm and sometimes I use my right arm. I usually start in the armpit. So you choose what is easier. Is it easier for you to reach across with your left arm or just to use your right arm? And I often start on the side. It's the breast area coming around, starting on the side. I side bend to the left and that opens up my right ribs a little. And then that's part of the width of my right middle lobe. And then I come around and don't be afraid to, I know we're on video and it's a little maybe weird to massage your breast, but it's really important because breast tissue is right over that middle lobe and breast tissue can get densifications and gluing. And so I like to both think of my breast and my middle lobe together and get the movement and the ungluing and the de-adhering all together. So it's a little from a little above my breast, all the way to almost to my sternum, a little below my breast, through my breast, into my middle lung, three-dimensionally. Remember the middle lobe wraps around and then wraps around and is at a certain point covered by the posterior lobe. So you want to locate it in your mind's eye, touch it, tap it as much as you can, and now close your eyes and breathe into your middle right lobe. And if you side bend a little left, you'll open up the ribs on that side and give that right middle lobe more opportunity to expand. So breathing. Take your time when you're doing this on your own. Take as much time as you need whichever lobe part you're on. And then I'm just going to stand. And now I can feel my upper. And something happened with the screen.
Shut down. Did it kick us right out? Oh, good.
Okay, so here we are. We're back. This is the real world. Stuff happens. I usually don't say it that way. I usually say the swear word, but here we are. So we've just been breathing into our right middle lobe. And now here's the movement that I like to do. Again, I would love to hear your feedback and what you've developed for this movement. I'm going to change the screen just a little bit. Okay, so we're going to go into the compression and then the expansion. I like to bend my arm and bring my upper arm right up against my ribs. And then the compression part is I side bend to the right a little bit and press my arm a little bit into my rib cage, feeling that it compresses my lungs and also kind of slightly push down. I'm trying to get a sense of compression into that right middle lobe. A little side bending, a little adduction, a little compression down. And then I'm going to relax. And now I'm going to bring my bent arm in front of my right breast. I'm going to go inside my middle right lung, and I'm going to use a rotational movement. And I want the movement to come not from my arm or shoulder. or actually my ribs itself, I want it to come from inside my lung. So I get into my lung three-dimensionally, the middle lobe as much as I can, and then I start turning to the left and to the right. And I start like trying to get from inside my lung and sort of throwing my lung a little left and throwing it a little right. And of course, my rib cage and my spine and my arm, shoulder come with the movement, but I'm trying to move from inside my lung. And I just experiment. It might look a little weird, but I'm trying to kind of really generate the movement from my lung. It doesn't matter if that's true or not. It's an experience. You're just trying to do that. And then I rest. I hope that makes sense. Actually, I practice this quite a lot and I actually love it. And sometimes I'm just right in the middle of the lung tissue. Other times I have a little harder time getting into it. So I'm just there. I feel very expanded in that middle lobe. And again, I'm going to come up and now I feel that the expansion in my middle lobe has really allowed me to lengthen through my arm much more through as well the side of my rib cage as well as through actually all the lobes of my lungs maybe. And I'm going to compare. I really feel the difference right to left. Left is still a bit, it's stiffer compared to the right. And it makes me kind of want to move more, dance more, because I'm just I feel so much more fluid now throughout my whole right lung. Okay. And I think I did complete, and we did the assessment. So now we're going to go into the left middle lobe. And it's, remember, we're dividing the left as if it's got three lobes like the right, just for the sake of being able to focus our attention and breath. So I'm going to bend my arm and bring it against my left rib cage. I'm going to side bend a little left to squeeze those ribs on the left a little more. I'm going to kind of just compress down a little bit with maybe my shoulder girdle and breathe and feel the inhibition in being able to fully breathe, especially in that middle lobe. Take your time and then relax. Bring your bent, did we do the breathing? We did the breathing into it, or did I skip that? I skipped that. Okay. Let's just do a little bit of a reset before we do the movement. Let's go back to our middle lobe and breathe into it. I messed up. Let's go back to number 2, breathing into the middle lobe on the left. I'm going to side bend a little right to open up those ribs. I'm thinking all through my breast tissue, all from my sternum, all the way around the width of my rib cage, the depth of my rib cage on the left, curves around under the posterior lobe a little bit. I'm going to focus my breath to expand into that, expand and release into that left middle lobe. And I'm going to raise, I just feel a sense of fluidity I haven't felt. My left feels really good, and it's often way more limited than my right. Okay, now we're going to go into the movement. Bending your left arm, bringing your arm right against your bent arm right against your left rib, side bending left a little bit to compress, and then just sort of press down a little bit, compress into that left middle, supposed middle region of the left lobe. Inhales and exhales, feel the inhibition of the breath to be able to fully live in the left middle lobe. It takes my awareness a little longer to get into my left lobe. This is me. That may not be true for you. Could be your left, could be your right, could be both are easy, could be both are difficult. And then I'm going to relax a moment, gonna go back into bringing my bent arm. Now my left palm is in front of my left breast. And I'm gonna go inside my lung tissue, so that I'm actually inside that middle lobe. And I'm gonna try to rotate from the middle lobe. And my spine will twist, my arm will follow, rotating right and left. And sometimes I feel more successful in getting the movement to come from the lung first and then out into my rib cage, my arm, my shoulder, my spine. I kind of have to sort of throw that middle lobe a little bit, both backward and forward. I'm actually more successful throwing it backward.
And remember here too, Susan, you have written, I love this part, see if you can both visualize and sense your middle left lobe sliding under your top lobe and over the bottom.
Thank you. So Nikki is reminding me, I don't know if you heard that, but as you're rotating and feeling the movement, you're also visualizing that middle lobe is sliding under the upper lobe on the left and on top of the lower lobe and sliding around and under the posterior lobe in the back, so that you are also focusing on the actual sliding ability of the lobe region away from the upper and lower posterior part of the lobe. Yes, that's really a nice one. Thank you for remembering that. Okay, I'm just going to stand for a moment. My awareness is really full of my middle lobe, my left middle lobe. And now I'm going to do literally my final assessment. And it just makes me want to move my arms a little bit more and just feel the effects of working with my lungs. And then I'm going to side bend my head right and left. And that's just, it's feeling easier. I was actually hearing cracks and pops as I was doing it earlier. And then the last thing we're going to do is we're going to take a little walk. You may have more room than I will. And just as you, I may or may not go off camera, but as you walk, just let your breathing flow. I can feel right now that my breathing is really helping my arms swing, my hips feel looser, the effect of focusing on my upper, middle, and lowermost posterior lobe has really allowed me to have a general flow and maybe wiggle and just freedom in my body as I walk. And that is going to end this presentation. Thank you very much. And Nikki,
Susan.
you're welcome.
And I'm giving her this hug from everybody because I know that you're all sad you didn't get to hug her in person.
Thank you. And email me with ideas, expansions, enhancements. That would be great. Thank you.